It was an ordinary Tuesday morning for Barron Trump. The sun peeked through the tall windows of the Trump family estate as he sat quietly in his room. A stack of letters lay on his desk, fan mail mostly. But one letter, written in shaky handwriting on plain paper, caught his eye. It wasn't fancy like the others. "Dear Barron," it began. "My name is Sarah. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I'm writing because my family has lost everything. My dad was a veteran, and he passed away last month. My mom is struggling to keep us together, and my little brother cries every night. I don't know why I'm writing you. I guess I just hope someone out there cares." Barron's heart clenched. He read the letter again, slower this time, his chest tightening with every word. He had always lived a life of privilege, protected by fame and fortune, but something about Sarah's words felt real, too real to ignore. He grabbed his phone, called his assistant, and said, "I need to find this family now." Little did Barron know, this decision would lead him on a journey that would change lives forever, including his own. Barron knew this mission couldn't be public. As the son of one of the most famous men in the world, any move he made would be scrutinized. "We'll need to do this quietly," he told his head of security, Michael, a tall, stern man who had protected Barron for years. Michael frowned. "Sir, this is risky. We don't know who these people are. It could be a trap." Barron shook his head firmly. "It's not a trap. This girl poured her heart out. I can't ignore it." After hours of searching, Barron's team found Sarah's family. They lived in a small rundown house on the outskirts of a quiet town. The roof was patched with tarps, and the yard was overgrown. It was a far cry from the luxurious world Barron was used to. "I'll go alone," Barron said, surprising Michael. "Absolutely not," Michael shot back. "At least let me and the team stay nearby." Barron relented. "Fine, but no cameras, no media. This isn't about making headlines." As they prepared for the journey, Barron packed a small wooden box, a gift he believed could give the grieving family a glimmer of hope. When Barron arrived at Sarah's home, the air felt heavy. The house seemed to whisper stories of loss and struggle. Michael and his team stayed in a black SUV, parked discreetly down the street, leaving Barron to approach the door alone. He knocked gently. The door creaked open, and a boy no older than 7 peered out. His big, teary eyes widened when he saw Barron. "Mom!" the boy shouted, running back inside. "There's a boy at the door. He looks like someone from TV." A woman appeared, her face pale and weary, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. "I'm Barron," he said, extending his hand. "I got Sarah's letter. I wanted to come and see if there's anything I can do to help." The woman blinked, her lip trembling. "You came here? For us?" Sarah appeared from behind her mother, her face red from crying. "You're real?" she whispered, her voice cracking. Barron nodded. "And I brought something for you." The family stared at the wooden box in his hands, their curiosity mingling with disbelief. What was inside, they wondered, and how could it possibly help them? As Barron stood at the doorstep of Sarah's home, a sense of uncertainty washed over him. He had visited many places before, surrounded by guards, cameras, and the bustling noise of his family's fame. But this was different. This wasn't a glamorous event. This was real. The heavy silence in the air felt like a thick curtain separating him from the pain inside. The woman, Sarah's mother, opened the door further. Her tired eyes locked with his. "You're really here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Barron nodded. "I'm here because I read your daughter's letter. I'm sorry for your loss." She stepped aside, gesturing for him to come in. "We don't get visitors. Not like this." As Barron entered the modest home, he felt a sharp contrast between this space and the opulence he was used to. The house smelled of old wood and fresh coffee, but there was an underlying sadness in the air. The children were quiet, sitting in a corner, watching him with wide eyes. Barron's heart tightened. This wasn't just a visit, it was a chance to make a difference. But how? He wasn't sure yet. Once inside, Barron placed the small wooden box on the kitchen table, careful not to draw attention to it. Sarah, who had been standing behind her mother, stepped forward. "Is that for us?" she asked hesitantly, her voice fragile. Barron gave a small, reassuring nod. "Yes, it's something I brought for you." The room seemed to hold its breath as Sarah's mother looked at the box, then back at Barron. She didn't know what to say, her grief making words feel hollow. Her eyes, red from countless sleepless nights, met Barron's, searching for a sign of hope. Barron took a deep breath. "I know this isn't going to fix everything, but maybe it can help a little." The family gathered around the table, and Barron slowly opened the box. Inside was a collection of items, a hand-carved wooden figurine, a letter, and a small picture frame. They were all simple, but each piece carried meaning, a symbol of strength, courage, and memories that couldn't be forgotten. Sarah's mother slowly picked up the letter first. As she opened it, her hand trembled. Barron watched, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had just brought into this grieving family's life. The words on the paper were written by Barron himself, and they were meant to offer comfort and a reminder that they were not alone. "To Sarah and your family," the letter read, "I can't pretend to know your pain, but I know that it's real. My family has faced many challenges, and we've learned that love, even in the hardest times, can make a difference. This small gift is a token of my hope for you. You are stronger than you know, and I believe in your healing." As Sarah's mother read aloud, her voice cracked, and tears fell freely. The words hit deep. Barron had no idea how much this would mean to them. But in that moment, he realized that the simple act of showing up and showing care was more powerful than anything he could have imagined. The family sat in stunned silence, not knowing what to say. The room felt heavier now, but it was a different kind of heaviness. A heaviness filled with hope, slowly replacing the sorrow. As the family continued to stare at the small wooden box on the table, Sarah's mother, still wiping away tears, slowly reached for the hand-carved figurine inside. It was a symbol of a phoenix, rising from the ashes. Barron had chosen it carefully. He wanted to remind them that even in the darkest moments, there could be rebirth and renewal. This is beautiful," Sarah's mother whispered, holding it carefully in her hands. "But why would you bring this to us?" Barron sat down at the table looking at the family. "I don't have all the answers. I can't take away your pain, but I hope this will remind you that there's hope, that no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way to rise above it." Sarah's little brother, who had been silently watching, suddenly spoke up. "Is this for us to keep?" His eyes were wide with curiosity and awe. "Yes," Barron replied gently. "It's for you. It's a reminder that you're not alone in this." The family sat in stunned silence, unsure of how to respond. The weight of Barron's words and the sincerity in his voice touched them in ways they couldn't put into words. As Barron watched the family, he noticed something subtle but profound. The tension in the room seemed to melt away, if only for a moment. Sarah's mother looked at him with gratitude, her expression softened by the warmth of his gesture. She spoke quietly, her voice still trembling. "I don't know how to thank you, Barron. We've been struggling so much, and this small thing, it's more than I ever expected." Barron smiled, though his heart felt heavy. "You don't have to thank me. I just wanted you to know that someone cares. You don't have to carry this burden alone." There was a long pause as the family absorbed his words. Then Sarah, the young girl who had written the letter, came forward. She reached out to Barron, her face full of wonder. "Thank you for coming. I never thought anyone would listen to us. It feels different now." Barron could see the weight in her eyes, like a small glimmer of hope had been sparked. It wasn't much, but it was something. And in that moment, Barron realized that what he had done wasn't about the gift. It was about showing them they were seen. After a few more moments of silence, Sarah's mother stood up and walked over to a dusty shelf in the corner of the room. She pulled out a box of old family photos and began to sift through them. "These were from before," she said softly, holding up a picture of her late husband with their children. "Before everything changed." Barron, sensing the weight of the moment, moved closer to her. The photo was worn, the edges frayed, but the smiles were still clear. A family, once whole, now torn apart by loss. "Would you like me to look at them with you?" Barron asked. Sarah's mother nodded, handing him the photo of her husband and children. For the first time, Barron felt like a part of something real, something more than just a celebrity or an outsider. The pain in Sarah's mother's eyes mirrored the grief that Barron had never fully understood, despite the loss his own family had experienced. As Barron gazed at the photo, he realized how deeply interconnected they all were by their shared humanity. This family wasn't just in mourning. They were trying to rebuild their lives piece by piece, and the small gesture he had offered was a sign that they could begin to heal. As Barron sat with the grieving family, he couldn't help but notice the silence that filled the room. It wasn't the comfortable silence that comes with knowing people. This was a silence filled with loss, confusion, and unspoken words. Sarah's mother, still clutching the phoenix figurine, sat at the table with her head bowed. Her eyes were red, and her lips quivered as though she might speak but couldn't find the strength. Barron felt the weight of the moment. He had been raised in a world of luxury, of public appearances and constant attention, but none of that mattered now. In this small, humble home, Barron found something that he had never experienced before: raw, unfiltered grief, and it made him realize just how much he had taken for granted. "What can I do?" Barron finally asked, breaking the silence. Sarah's mother lifted her head slowly, meeting his gaze. "I don't know," she whispered. "Nothing can bring him back. But maybe your visit is a start. It feels like a small piece of light in a very dark world." Barron nodded. His heart ached for this family, and in that moment, he knew that this visit wasn't just a gesture. It was the beginning of something that could change everything. The wooden box still sat in the center of the table, its presence heavy yet comforting. Barron watched as Sarah picked it up again, tracing her fingers along the edges. She had not spoken much since he arrived, but Barron could see the curiosity in her eyes. She was trying to understand why a man she had never met had come all this way. "Do you want to open it?" Barron asked gently. Sarah nodded, her eyes still wide with a mix of disbelief and hope. As she lifted the lid, a soft gasp escaped her lips. Inside, there was another picture frame. A beautiful frame, carved from the same wood as the phoenix figurine. In the frame was a photo of her father, smiling with his family on a sunny day. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "This is my dad," she whispered. Barron smiled, though his heart ached. "He's with you always, Sarah. In here," he said, pointing to her heart. Sarah's mother, overwhelmed with emotion, wiped away a tear. "This is more than we could ever have expected. Thank you." The room fell quiet again, but this time, the silence was different. It felt like the first step toward healing. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the small home, something shifted. The heaviness that had once filled the space was replaced by a quiet hope. Sarah's mother, holding the figurine and the picture frame, looked at Barron with a new understanding in her eyes. "You've given us something we never thought we would have again. Hope," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Barron smiled, though he felt a lump in his throat. Hope is powerful, and sometimes it just takes one person to remind you that it's still there. Sarah, who had been quietly holding the picture frame, turned to Barron. "Will we ever be okay again?" she asked, her voice small and fragile. Barron knelt down to her level, his gaze steady and sincere. "It might take time, but yes, you will. And when you're ready, you'll find a way to carry your father's memory with you. And in doing that, you'll always keep him close." As Barron stood up and walked toward the door, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He hadn't come to solve their pain. He had come to show them that they weren't alone. And for the first time in a long while, Barron felt like he had made a real difference. The sun had begun to set as Barron sat in the back of the black SUV, watching the landscape blur by. His guards were in the front, quiet, ever vigilant, as they made their way through the quiet streets toward Sarah's home. The weight of the day's events still pressed on his chest, but as he looked out the window, he felt a strange sense of peace. This wasn't a normal visit. He wasn't there for some photo op or event. He wasn't surrounded by the chaos of his famous family or the media. He was simply Barron, one person trying to make a difference in the life of a family that had been torn apart. Barron didn't say much as the car sped toward their destination. It wasn't about the words anyway. He knew that. It was about showing up, about being present for someone who needed it. For a long time, Barron had been in the shadows, watching others take the spotlight. But today, he wasn't just the son of the former president. He was someone who wanted to help, to heal. When the car finally stopped, Barron took a deep breath, steeling himself. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but he knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. Sarah's mother opened the door, her face filled with disbelief. "You're here?" she asked, almost unable to believe it. Barron stood there, his hands in his pockets, a small but sincere smile on his face. "I'm here. I wanted to check on you. And Sarah." She stepped aside, allowing him in. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that only grief could bring. The walls seemed to close in, heavy with sorrow, but Barron didn't flinch. He had come to offer comfort, not to shy away from the pain. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her legs curled up beneath her. When she saw Barron, her eyes widened in shock. "You really came?" she whispered. Barron nodded, his voice calm but filled with warmth. "I know this doesn't fix everything, but I wanted to do something, to show you that you're not alone in this." Sarah's mother didn't speak for a moment, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You don't know how much this means to us," she said quietly. Barron's heart sank, but he stayed strong. He wasn't just here to give them a gift. He was here to give them hope. Barron reached into the bag he had brought with him, carefully pulling out the wooden box. He set it gently on the table in front of them. The family gathered around, their eyes filled with confusion and anticipation. Sarah's mother spoke first. "What's this?" Barron took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what I could bring you that might offer a little comfort, a little hope." He lifted the lid of the box, revealing the hand-carved phoenix figurine inside. This is for you," Barron said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's a symbol, a reminder that even after the darkest times, we can rise again. I know this doesn't bring your loved one back, but I hope it reminds you that there is strength in every loss." The room fell silent as Sarah's mother reached out to touch the phoenix. The intricate details, the care it took to create such a piece, seemed to speak directly to her heart. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Barron met her gaze, his voice gentle. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that it's a symbol of hope for you and your family." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the figurine. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of Barron's sincerity. Barron sat quietly, his gaze lingering on the phoenix figurine that now sat at the center of the small table. The air was thick with emotion, and every second that passed felt like it held an entire lifetime of unspoken words. Sarah and her mother looked at the gift as if they were seeing it for the first time, but Barron could feel the weight of their pain, the loss that had been so deeply rooted in their hearts. "Is it wrong to hope again?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Barron didn't have an easy answer. He had never been in their shoes, never experienced the kind of heartache they were going through. But he knew one thing for certain. Hope was never wrong. "No," he said, his voice calm. Hope is the most powerful thing you can have. It's okay to grieve, but it's also okay to let yourself heal. Your father would want you to live, to keep moving forward. Sarah nodded, but Barron could see the tears welling in her eyes. This wasn't just a gift he had brought, it was a promise, a lifeline to help them through the darkest of times. With a heavy heart, Barron stood up. I have to go now, but know that this is just the beginning. You will find strength. I believe in you. As Barron walked toward the door, the family's eyes followed him, grateful for the simple yet profound connection that had been made. Barron could only hope that this small gesture would be enough to set them on a path of healing. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Barron returned to his life, the constant hum of public appearances, and the overwhelming noise of the world. But each day he carried with him the memory of that family, that raw moment of connection. What started as a simple visit had transformed both his life and theirs. Sarah's mother reached out to Barron a few days after his visit. Her message was simple, but filled with gratitude. We've started to move forward, Barron. The Phoenix is with us, reminding us that hope is always possible. Barron felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. It wasn't about grand gestures or big promises. It was about showing up when it mattered most. It was about empathy, about giving a piece of yourself to someone who needed it. As he reflected on the visit, Barron realized something that had eluded him for years, the true meaning of family, of kindness, and of hope. What he had given wasn't just a figurine. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was always a way out, always a way to heal. A month later, Barron received an unexpected message. It was from Sarah, and her words were simple but heartfelt. I'm okay now, Barron. We're okay. The Phoenix helped us find our way. Barron couldn't stop the tear that slipped down his cheek as he read the message. He had been a part of something bigger than himself, something more meaningful than any headline or camera could capture. In that moment, he realized that the most important thing he could ever do was connect with others, offer them hope, and be the change the world so desperately needed. It wasn't the grand gestures that changed lives. It was the quiet acts of kindness, the selfless moments that spoke louder than any words ever could. Barron had witnessed a family begin to heal, and in doing so, he had healed too. If you were touched by this emotional journey, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. Share how this story made you feel and what it taught you about hope, kindness, and healing. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss another heartwarming moment like this. Your support helps us bring more stories of transformation and inspiration to the world. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey.